Hi friends, we're having a Midea induction stove repaired today. The power consumption is minimal and there's a clicking noise. However, some functions work and the buttons are partially pressed. The power button works sometimes, sometimes not. This stove is behaving strangely. Let's take it apart and see if we can find something. The stove is in very poor condition. It's very dirty. You can see the full name on the screen right now. To disassemble it, you need to remove the rubber feet. There are screws underneath. This is what the power supply board looks like. And here's the induction oven. I tested it, and it's fine. There are two capacitors here, and here's the MOSFET that turns the coil on. And here's the display board. The board is heavily greased in several places. Look, there's even some corrosion. The back of the board is also in pretty bad shape. There are also some spilled spots. Now I'll start cleaning the grease off the entire board. I started with the worst spills, which were all over the capacitor and LED. I just desoldered the capacitor, and as you can see, its pin is completely rotted. I'll replace the capacitor, and I'll also desolder the adjacent LED and check its condition. So, friends, I've added the boards and will now try turning on the oven. We've started a beeping sound when turning it on, so let's try turning on the board. As you can see, the board powers on and beeps. I'll also fix the power button now, as it's not working. It's all covered in grease. So I've disassembled the button and I'm going to clean it now. Then I'll move on and inspect the board in detail. I've assembled the stove and I'm about to test it. The idle consumption is 70 milliamps. I repaired the power button and the adjacent time button. I checked all the LEDs where there was grease staining. The stove used to not turn off, but now it does, as you can see. If you remove the kettle, the stove starts beeping, indicating there is no metal pan on it. If we put the kettle back, it starts heating up. The current consumption has increased to over 1 amp. Pressing the power button turns the stove off. Let's check all the operating modes. And now I think I've found another faulty mode. It looks like another button is not working. The others seem to turn on. The last button remains to be repaired. And basically, the stove is completely repaired. Let's turn it off and wait for it to cool, and then we'll fix the button. Let's recap. I made the power button, then the adjacent time button. I removed the oxidation under the LED, and also unsoldered and cleaned the adjacent LED. Next, I replaced the capacitor, cleaned all the jumpers, and removed all the grease. I also reassembled the LED and repaired the outer button. There seems to be no spillage or damage on this side. I cleaned the back side as well. And the board is now in perfect condition. Also, one transistor on the power supply had been flooded, so I had to desolder it and clean everything underneath. If you have similar spillage as here, you should definitely unsolder the component and inspect what's underneath, as a carbon trail can form that can short out and prevent the entire oven from working properly. You also need to check that the component is working before resoldering it. The rotted capacitor, for example, clearly shows the severe damage inside, even though it looked fine from the outside. Therefore, external cleaning may not help. You'll need to desolder the components and inspect what's underneath. Now you need to reassemble the induction furnace and test it. As you can see, the stove is very dirty. I'll tell her that it needs to be cleaned and that we should try to avoid letting it get this dirty. Please keep an eye on your appliance. Otherwise you might have the same problem. Grease and other liquids can get inside and damage electronic components and circuit boards. Now, turn it over and connect it to test. Let's see how the stove behaves when we plug in the power cord. It makes a sound and runs a self-diagnosis. Next, press the power button. It won't turn on until you place a metal pan on the stove. Now, as you can see, the button works. You remember it wasn't pressed before. The button is restored, so let's also check the other buttons and make sure they all turn on. All buttons work. The stove also turns off normally. After turning off, the fan starts to cool the surface and then turns off. Now I'll put a kettle of water on and see if it heats up. But as you can see, it's working properly. When I put metal cookware in, I hear a crackling sound, like microwaves. This is normal oven operation, and the kettle heats up very quickly. I just set it to the minimum 60 degrees and it turned off. So let's increase the temperature. Yes, the oven turned on. Let's go through the modes again and check if everything is working. As you can see, everything is working, another device is fixed. I hope the video was helpful, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss new videos. Bye!